welcome to 2 Minutes and Beyond, the podcast where we review the Toy Story movies 2 minutes at a time. I'm Bianca and this is Macy.
Hello.
Hi. In this episode, we're talking about minutes 41 and 42 of Toy Story.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
We just recorded our episode about our trip to Disney World.
Yes, it was great. I would love to go back again, just not anytime soon.
But other than that, like, I know we like to joke about how we joke that we haven't seen each other in so long when it's only been like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But we like legit haven't, other than our Disney World episode we just recorded, we haven't recorded an actual episode since the Sunday before Thanksgiving. So I think it was
true.
like November 21st and it's January 9th now.
Yeah, so it's been a while. It's been a hot minute.
It's been almost 2 months.
Like a month and a half.
I think I actually did look at it and it was like 7 weeks.
Oh my gosh, that's a long time.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm really excited to talk about this clip because there's a lot to talk about in here.
Yes, I'm very excited getting back to it and, just picking up where we left off as if nothing's ever happened.
As if it hasn't been 7 weeks since we last
Nobody's going to
recorded
know.
One of these.
They're none the wiser. So let's go ahead and get started.
Sounds good.
We start off these 2 minutes with Sid's dog, Scud, destroying the Pizza Planet alien while Woody and Buzz watch in terror from inside Sid's bag. Sid yells to his sister Hannah and asks if his package has come in the mail. She says she doesn't know, and he says, "What do you mean you don't know?" She responds, "I don't know." Sid sighs, but then says, "Oh no, Hannah," in a fake concerned voice. She says, "What?" And he says, "Look, Janie, she's sick." Sid grabs her doll out of her hands and says, "I'll have to perform one of my operations." He runs upstairs to his bedroom while Hannah screams at him to give her back. Woody says, "No, not Sid's room, not there." I love how fake the way he says it. "Oh no, Hannah, look."
That's such an older sibling.
Yes, it's fantastic. I also love how this clip starts with just violence.
I mean, I'm an older sibling, and I will admit that I was not always the nicest to my younger siblings when I was little.
I'm the baby of the family, so I got all the beatings. And it was mostly from my brother, because my sister was already a teen by the time I was born. And she was more like the stereotypical, like, second mom type. But my brother, I mean, he is pretty far apart. We're 9 years apart. But during that time, like when I was about 5 or 6, he was already like 14, 15. So yeah, he was like the angsty teen, and he would make fun of me, and he would like not really be mean to me, but he would like poke fun at me mostly. And I remember that. And I still remind him of that. And he's like, "Oh my God, Bianca, that was such a long time ago." Like, well, it still hurts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the oldest of 5. And I mean, I was never like to the point of stealing my siblings' toys and like tearing them apart like Sid. But I could be pretty mean to my siblings, and I liked to mess with them. I was
think
not
it's
always
just because
the nicest
it's like
person to them.
Yeah, I think because you see them growing up and you've already experienced what they're experiencing.
And you also yourself are a child and you're not really that mature.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad that, even though my brother was pretty, not really cruel, but he would poke fun at me, he was not to the point where he was like, pushing me or like doing things to where I would cry. He was just like being the teen, like it was not anything too cruel to where my mom had to get involved.
Yeah. I just feel bad for Hannah because it's like, I mean, it seems like they don't have the greatest home life, and she's got this older brother who's being a bully to her and just treats her like crap.
Yeah.
And
No,
her
I
toys are
feel
getting torn apart. Like later in her room, when she has the tea party, like all of her dolls have their heads torn off.
she has a sad life. Poor Hannah.
I know.
Oh my gosh, that is miserable. Like I've seen families like that. Like I had they weren't necessarily cousins. So they were my cousin's cousins, but I called them my
Mm.
cousins because we all played together.
Mhm.
And their family was like that. Like my cousin Amanda, her brothers would always poke fun at her because she was the only sister. So her stuff was like that. And she was like, whatever. I don't care. My poor cousin. She was like, oh, well.
The actress who played Hannah was, named Sarah Freeman.
Ooh.
I got a little bit of information about her from IMDb. She was
Ooh.
credited as Sarah Freeman. I assume that was her maiden name. Now, if you look on IMDb, it's Sarah Rain. Um, she was in a handful of things in, like, the '90s and early 2000s. Um, she was in an episode of Roseanne. She
Oh.
played the character Nikki Healy in It Looks Like a Christmas Episode,
Oh, okay.
and she was in the show Seventh Heaven in a couple episodes,
Okay.
Sarah Magny character, and the show Without a Trace. Those are the only things on here that I actually recognize.
Hmm. I've never seen any of them. I mean, I've seen Roseanne, but I didn't see that Christmas special. So,
Yeah. So, I was wondering, is, like, the alien destroyed now? But then I remembered at the end when they all, like, terrorize Sid, the alien is one of the toys that, like, rises up
oh,
out of the
yeah.
ground or the sandbox or whatever,
That's right. So the little alien survived, but he's had a miserable life since reaching nirvana.
unless it was a different alien, but
I don't
because
know.
they
I
all look
mean,
the same.
if Sid goes pretty often to Pizza Planet and he's always getting that's actually kind of nice of Sid. As horrible as a kid as he is, he goes and gets a chew toy for his dog every single time.
I mean, it's not nice for the toy.
It's not nice for the toy, but he's considering the dog. That's it's kind of nice because you're like, oh, he loves his dog, but then it's like, oh, the poor little alien. Shall we move on?
Yep.
Okay. At the 24-second mark, Sid slams his bedroom door on Hannah and throws his bag on his bed. He pretends to be a surgeon and says, "We have a sick patient here, nurse. Prepare the OR, stat." He chuckles and puts Janie into a clamp and says, "Patient is prepped. No one's ever attempted a double bypass brain transplant before," and puts on his surgical mask. He pulls a pterodactyl toy out of a crate and says, "Now for the tricky part. Pliers." Woody looks away and shields his eyes, and Buzz says, "I don't believe that man's ever been to medical school."
I
That's got
love
to
the
be one of my
idea.
favorite lines.
I love the idea that in Buzz's mind, he thinks Sid is some guy who's, like, trying to pose as a surgeon and doing these horrible things.
I know. I'm like, Buzz, you should realize by now. Oh my gosh. But I do love that as deranged as he is, he's into medical. As a medical student myself, I'm like, oh, yes, I can see that you are interested in medical.
I feel like Sid has probably watched a lot of medical dramas with his parents.
Probably, I feel like what was during that time? Like ER? No, ER was a little bit later.
I don't know.
I don't know. He'd probably, or if he's like me, messed up little kid, well, YouTube wasn't alive back then, but as a deranged kid myself, I do enjoy watching a bunch of medical stuff on YouTube. So I don't know. Maybe that. Maybe he is a well-defined doctor now. Well, no, he's a garbage man now.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's a garbage man in Toy Story
Never
3.
mind.
Maybe he was doing that to pay for medical school.
Oh, maybe. You know what? You never know. Yeah, because medical school is expensive. I've looked at, not to go off topic, but I've looked at like testimonials of people that are like, yeah, I went through medical school on loans, and after like the actual school and then their residency, they're like, I was like $250,000 in debt.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, maybe I won't be a doctor just yet. It's bad enough I'm trying to get my bachelor's.
Yeah. Should we talk about the shining carpet in Sid's house?
Oh, yes, let's.
I mean, I guess there's not much to say about it other than that the carpet in Sid's house is from the movie The Shining.
Yeah. It's very lovely carpet coming from their house. Maybe The Shining was shot in their house. We don't know.
I mean, Sid's house, like the interior design, I need to talk to whoever did that and ask them why they made the choices they made.
Probably to set the mood, to make it
it's
seem
not,
creepy.
It's really creepy.
I think also just like a little Easter egg for the parents. Like if the parents noticed it and they're like, oh, hey, that's the carpet from The Shining. And they're like, oh, because he's the bad guy. And they just
Mhm.
like, I don't know, just like fun little Easter eggs for the parents while the kids are watching.
Yeah, and I also found out that, like, during the production of this movie, Sid's nickname was Little Jack Nicholson because Jack Nicholson was in The Shining.
That's great. I didn't know that.
I have questions about Sid's door and how it locks.
I don't like that Woody says, like later on the next clip when he's like, it's locked. I'm like, why would Sid lock his own door from the outside?
When he slams the door on Hannah, and Hannah can't open the door, but, like, he didn't stop and lock it.
That's true. Maybe it's one of those
Is
like
it if
doors.
'Cause
Like
he's got tons of locks on it. I'm like, I wonder if one of them somehow works automatically.
kind of like the one-way doors like at medical facilities where you have to punch in the number, but maybe it's just a lock and he just carries a key all the time.
I don't he just, like he didn't do anything, though. He just, like, threw his bag down and started doing his surgery.
That's so weird. Maybe he has a key. That's what I'm thinking. He has his own key that he keeps with himself all the time so he can get into his room and then just close the door. But then I'm like, why do you need all the other locks?
But then it didn't lock he didn't do anything to lock it again, though.
I know, that's the
Because
thing.
even if
Like
he opened it with the key, he couldn't, like he didn't lock it again.
I don't know. Sid is weird.
Unless somehow one of the locks, like, works automatically, I don't know. Like,
I
if it
don't know.
just
But then
lays
I don't know.
down, like, when you close the door, it just, like, lays down and works, I don't know. And then again, later when, he leaves the room, it somehow locks itself again. He doesn't lock it, and Woody goes to try to open the door, and he's like, "It's locked," and I'm like, "Nobody locked it."
I don't know.
And also,
Also, why
why
is
did
it
you not
locked on the
try to unlock
inside?
it?
If Woody's
Right.
on the inside, you should be able to open the door, but on the outside it's locked. So I don't,
Exactly. I'm like, you granted, there's a ton of locks on the door. It would probably take a few minutes to and they could reach it too. Like, he walks across onto the little table, and then he goes over to the door handle. He could have, like, stood on the door handle and unlocked all the locks.
Pixar, I have questions. This is turning into a long grocery list of questions.
Well, we've already talked about how Woody and Buzz share one brain cell.
True.
I think they just didn't think that one through.
It. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no. I'm not gonna. Just moving on from the locks.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It does not. Okay, well, let me continue on.
Oh, I've still got more.
Oh, yes, please go right ahead.
I wanted to talk about the stuff in Sid's room.
Oh, yes. let's talk about the stuff in his room.
For one, there's a ton of trash on the floor.
There is. He's a very messy kid. And I feel like most teens are messy. There are a few teens that do clean up because they don't like mess. But every teen that I've known in my life have had very messy rooms.
Yeah. But I guess his mom never comes in. Well, is he a teen though? Isn't he
I
supposed
don't
to be about
know.
Andy's age?
Maybe.
Maybe a little older?
Probably like 10.
Something like that.
If Andy's like 6 or 7, then yeah, maybe just like a few years older, like maybe like 9 or 10.
Yeah. The same grape soda cans from that were in the back of the Pizza Planet truck are there too.
Mm-hmm.
The same grape soda that's in the movie Up.
Mm-hmm. I like that they added that. Like later on, they're still using the same grape soda can.
Mm-hmm. There's also the trunk that just has the word toxic like spray painted on it.
Very 90s grunge.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Sid was one of like the freaks at school that just listened to like grunge and heavy metal and
Uh-huh.
didn't care about anybody. And everybody's just like, oh, he's one of the freaks.
There's a poster too on his wall, on top of his like right over his shelf that says Killin' Paul Bunyan and Killin' Paul Bunyan in the Bowl of Doom. And it's like a picture of this guy, I guess Paul Bunyan, carrying some kind of I can't see it super well. It's like some kind of purple bazooka or something, and then
Hmm.
there's a blue bowl. And I'm like, I'm sure it's supposed to be a reference to something. I could not figure it out.
Maybe. And I wasn't paying too terribly much attention to actually like go dig around and see if it was for anything. It's more than likely a reference to like a tour, maybe.
Maybe.
Because to me, that's what that reminded me of. And I didn't look to see if there was any like tour dates on it to see if it was maybe like a concert that was going, kind of like the
Yeah,
Bands
I
Off the
don't
Wall
see
tour where
any.
they do like several different bands.
I don't see any. It's just the picture, and on the bottom it says Killin' Paul Bunyan and the Bull of Doom.
It's more than likely a band because Killin' Paul Bunyan sounds like something I would listen to. That's just, and the Bowl of Doom, that's just something silly because every album I've listened to has had like a dumb name to it. Not necessarily dumb, but it's just like a random name that they're like, oh yeah, this sounds cool. This sounds metal. So,
Mhm.
my gosh.
Later on in a different shot, there's also a poster, like a horror movie poster.
Hmm.
It says Web of Terror. And it's this spider with a man's head, like chasing after this woman. And I'm like, please, no.
I feel like that's homage to like the old movies because there's that one old like 40s movie of the giant spider.
Mm-hmm.
And then just like all of the like horror culture and all the stuff like that. I think that's just playing homage to that because when I saw that, that was the first thing I thought of. I'm like, oh, that giant spider movie.
Or just like cheesy, 80s and 90s horror movies,
Yeah, just
that
stuff
kind
like
of
that.
thing.
I, for one, love his aesthetic.
I was going to say, this is very much your aesthetic.
It is. And I even made a Tumblr post like that. I think that was one of my first Tumblr posts. I have Andy's heart, but Sid's aesthetic. And that's gotten so many notes on it. And I'm just like, why?
All the heavy metal posters and
Yeah.
just like
And for me, it's funny because I'm here in my room and I'm blasting the heaviest metal. And then I think about it. I'm like, poor Woody's probably having flashbacks. He's just sitting in my cabinet, just like huddling with other plush toys. Like, get me out of here.
you're You're the mom from Monsters
I
University.
am. I'm Squishy's mom. And that's funny because my cousin just sent me that. She's like, this is you.
You're like, I'm gonna listen to my tunes, and you roll the window up and you're just blasting heavy metal.
That is so me because I've done that too. Like, I'm driving my sister around, and my sister is the very opposite of me. She absolutely hates heavy metal, and she will listen to like 80s sappy love songs, and that's her aesthetic. So we have that on. We'll have gospel music on, and like she gets out of the car, she's like, I'm gonna go run an errand. I'm like, okay, I'll be here listening to my tunes. And then I turn on my heavy metal. And when she comes back, I switch it back to her music.
Why does Sid have so many milk crates in his room?
You know, I want to know the same thing. Like, is that just
There's like
something he
5 of them.
collects?
Does he well, I guess he uses them
I
for all of his
think
toy
I
torturing
was gonna say, I
stuff.
think he uses them for like holding stuff, or like if he goes somewhere and sees like a milk
Mhm.
crate and he's just like piling a bunch of stuff. It's just something he just keeps them all. So it's
Well,
like
he's
his
standing on
shelving.
top of one of them.
Yeah. He's got a lot of them.
I noticed they all say, Fat Cow Farms, and they've got a little cartoon cow logo on them.
Yeah, I like the little cow. It's really cute.
Mhm. That's a nice detail. Why does he have just, like, a single light bulb hanging from a wire?
To
Like,
make it creepy, it's for the aesthetic.
later I mean, in the shot where he's putting on his mask, you can see that there's, like, an actual light fixture on the ceiling. At least I think that's what it is. Either that or it's some kind of vent. But I'm like, who lets their child just have a light bulb swinging around from a wire? That kinda seems like a fire hazard.
Yeah, unless that just came with the house like that. Like maybe that was already installed and they're like, oh, this is Sid's room.
Well, his room does kind of seem like, an attic that they just
Converted, yeah.
yeah, that when they moved into the house, they were like, "Oh, you can stay the attic can be your room."
Right? That's probably what they did. Like maybe when he was younger, he did have Hannah's room. And then when he got older, like they were like, well, we got to put the crib somewhere. And he's like, well, I'll just stay in the attic.
I
Because
guess.
that sounds like every little boy's dream too, like to have a creepy room like that. Like every little boy is like, yeah, I want to, tough it out in like the non insulated attic.
When he's working on his desk or his little work table, whatever it is,
Hmm.
there's a shot from, like, overhead, and you can see when he's got a bunch of, things plugged into this, um, what's the word? Extension cable,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I can't imagine what the cable management behind all that is like, because there's at least, like, 6 or 8 different things all plugged into that one power,
The power
extension cord.
strip. Yeah. I feel like he would even have a second power strip connected to the first power strip just to have more slots to put stuff in.
Yeah, that's what it looks like he did.
Oh my gosh. I never really paid attention. Like I saw that he had a lot of stuff plugged in, but I never looked to see like what each thing was. And I feel like that's a severe
But
fire hazard.
it's gotta be, like, wire spaghetti back there. I also I like how, um, you can see Sid has drawn a face on his drill.
Oh yeah.
It's puts, like, some eyes and a mouth.
Yeah. I like
That's
how
why
creative he is.
I mean, we've talked so much about how, like, creative Andy is. I feel like Sid and Andy really aren't that different.
Right. It's just the different upbringings. Like Sid is just as creative as Andy is. It's just being put through a different outlet because of his home life. There's
Mhm.
different aspects as to like where he uses his creativeness.
Yeah, and the way they each express themselves creatively.
Right. And I feel like a lot of families go through that too. Like there's so many creative people out there, but like depending on their upbringing and their resources that they have, everybody branches off into a different type of creativity. And it's like different degrees of like, oh, I'm imaginative this way, and oh, I'm imaginative this way.
Sid just happens to be imaginative in a way that's pretty destructive.
Yeah, he's one of the ones that like he's creative, but he would be perfect for like horror movies.
Mhm. And he's not even I mean, he's not really actually a villain. Like, from the toys perspective, yes, I completely understand why what he's doing is horrifying, but, like, he's not, like, intentionally trying to hurt any of the toys. He doesn't know that they're alive, you know?
Right. He's just doing what he feels is his outlet for creativity, and that's to Frankenstein different toys together.
Mhm. Which is why I feel like what they do to him at the end, like, scaring him so bad is kind of unfair. So I'm like,
Yeah,
I mean, come
because
on, Woody, come on. He's a kid. He doesn't know what he's doing. Like, I know he's killing the other toys,
mass
and
murderer.
that's not good. But like he doesn't know better.
Yeah, I mean, because he didn't know the toys were alive. He's just having fun the way he knows how to have fun.
Yeah.
And then Woody, being the jerk that he is, he's like, hey, let's scare the heck out of this kid.
All he's thinking is like, look, he's hurting all these toys. I better do something about it.
Yeah, and I mean, both sides are justified. You can't say that Sid is a bad person because of his upbringing. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, I hate Sid. He's a bad guy. I'm like, no, he's a kid. He's a deranged kid, but he's a kid.
Yeah, and Woody, I feel like I mean Woody's a toy, but he's functionally an adult, and I feel like he should have recognized on some level that Sid doesn't know what he's doing.
But we all know that Woody has ADHD and acts impulsively. And he's also doing it for the greater good of the toys. He's not considering the human realm and how they feel.
Mhm.
He's considering how the toys feel in their realm.
Yeah, he probably could have done it without, scarring this kid for life probably, though.
True, I'm pretty sure that if in Toy Story 3 they had an interaction, Sid would have gone to a hospital or something, an institution, and been like, the toy came back. He's still alive.
Seeing Sid put on a surgical mask kind of feels I mean, anytime now that I watch a show or something and someone is wearing a mask, like, I know people wore masks for I know people wore masks sometimes for different reasons before the pandemic, but I associate masks so much now with everything that's happened in the last couple years. It feels honestly kind of surreal seeing or maybe not
Yeah,
surreal, but just like kind of strange seeing Sid put on a mask. Also, that mask does not seal around his face.
it
It's
doesn't.
too big for him.
I know, I noticed that too, and I was just like, oh no. That's against CDC guidelines. Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, I get that because when I saw it too, I was just like, oh, he's putting on a mask. I too wear masks. But yeah, that feels very like, I don't know. It's just weird to see it because we're so used to it now. And then seeing it before, we're like, you don't have to wear that. But then it's like, there's other things that you wear them for, not just life or death.
Yeah. Where did Sid get all of his tools and who let him have them?
I feel like his family just doesn't care.
They don't pay attention.
They don't, and he's probably stealing his dad's tools.
Maybe.
And his dad's probably just like, I can't find this tool. The neighbor probably stole it, so let me just go buy another one.
Sid draws a face on it.
Yeah, that's the only way to use a power tool.
Woody makes that weird rattling sound again when he's, like, trembling, except this time he's not angry. He's scared.
Yeah, I feel like there may be a few, I guess, pieces in him
But still,
or
like, what is rattling together?
dead bugs in him. I don't know. Maybe it's just like him clenching. I don't know.
I guess it's just, like, the cartoony sound effect.
Yeah, they tried to make
Like in
him
a
very
cartoon when
cartoony,
someone gets
very
scared.
slapstick-esque. So that's probably what that is. But at the same time, you're like, sir, your sounds.
How is this happening?
Yeah, no, every time it pops up, I'm like, there he goes. Little sounds.
It's just so funny to think about, though, because that would be like, in this movie, it works, but, like, say if they had put that in, like, Toy Story 4 when
Yeah.
when he goes back to get Forky and Gabby Gabby finds him and starts to talk to him, like, imagine if he just, like, started shaking and
She's
rattling.
like, what are you doing? Maybe that was like a self-defense mechanism. Kind of like the way stink bugs have their awful smell and they just emit smell. His is just sounding like a little rattle.
But it's such a 90s, like, cartoony thing. I mean, we keep talking about how this movie, in a way, like we were just talking about, like, that the others aren't, is just so 90s, and, like, all the cartoony sound effects and all these things that in the other 3 Toy Story movies would feel out of place, like the cartoony shaking sound.
Yeah, I feel like this movie is a time capsule to 1995. And I love it. I want to say hands down, Toy Story 1 is my favorite movie just because it's so 90s. It is the epitome of like the middle of the 90s, but I love it. It's just so like, I guess also I'm biased because of the nostalgia factor.
Mhm.
Seeing it in theaters was just like mind blowing. And I would always go to people because they were like, "Oh, you watched Toy Story?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it was so cool." I'm like, "It was like a cartoon, but not." And they're like, "What?" I was trying to explain to them the computer animation. I'm like, "It's like cartoons and real life were smushed together." And I'm like, "But not like Roger Rabbit." It was a very foreign concept to me. And my parents were like, "It's the new computer animation." And I was like, "It's so cool." That was me as a child.
It is kind of interesting that they didn't, like, in Toy Story 2, they chose not to, like, use a lot of those same, like, cartoony or, 90s conventions.
Mhm. I feel like after that, like, once they started working on Toy Story 2, it was closer to the year 2000. So they
Mhm.
had, like, every several years, comedy changes, and you just go with the flow, and you know that for Toy Story, they started working on it even, like, in the early '90s. So for that, they were like, "Oh, we're using all of, like, late '80s, early '90s humor, adding it in." And then once they started working on the second one, it's like, "Okay, we have this bracket of humor. They're using it for, a new era." But I think maybe that's why they got rid of a lot of the stuff that they put in the first Toy Story and moved it to the second one. I think also because the storyline too didn't really call for that.
Mhm.
it was more of a different storyline. So a lot of the humor that they did use in that did fit very well for the second one, especially the whole like scenes and everything in the store and all of the shenanigans that happened there.
Mhm.
It's really fitting for that and for the time too.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see, though, what would have happened if they had kind of continued with that same kind of, I keep saying it, but, like, cartoony sensibility into the rest of the movies.
That would have been cool to see. I want to say if they did do that, though, I think Toy Story 2 would not have done as well. I think if they had carried on the same type of humor, like for each movie, it would have just like brought it down a little more.
It would have been very different.
I think it would have been kind of awkward too. I don't
Mhm.
know. Just hearing Woody rattle in yet another movie would not have been my favorite.
Buzz's head squeaking when he gets
See,
punched.
they should have kept that though. That was funny.
When, Utility Belt Buzz punch does Utility Belt Buzz ever punch, the other Buzz?
I don't remember. I don't think he does. I
It
can't
doesn't matter.
remember. But yeah, no, I think Buzz squeaking was great. I think they should have kept that. Then again, there's a lot of things I feel like they should have kept, but that's for a different podcast. All right, so moving on. At the 49-second mark, we see Sid performing his surgery with his back turned to the camera. He stops and proclaims, "Doctor, you've done it!" He opens the bedroom door and reveals that he taped the pterodactyl's head to Janie's body and tells Hannah, "Janie's all better now." Hannah screams and runs away, yelling for her mom. Sid yells, "She's lying! Whatever she says, it's not true!" He throws the doll with the pterodactyl head on the ground and slams the door behind him.
In the shots where you see, like, Sid's back is turned to the camera and he's, like, doing his surgery, there's, a couple of books in his room, and I had, of course, had to look and see if I could tell what they were. Mostly because I was curious if any of them were the same books from, like, Andy's room or
Oh, yeah.
Andy's living room.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to see if Women in Power, uh, made a comeback.
Oh my
But the
gosh.
the only 2 that I could make out were called AWOL and How to Get Away with It.
Oh my gosh. That's great. I like that. That sounds like stuff that would be in his room.
He's also just got, like, these random jars of dirt or something, it looks like.
Yeah, he's got questionable jars.
Like, what are you doing with those?
Maybe he's doing like the aesthetic of having like potion jars. I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know.
Or maybe he has worm farms. Maybe he's got a worm in there.
That I guess that could be. I just have so many questions about the Janie doll and the pterodactyl head. When you take when you put 2 toys together like that, do they become one toy? Do they share the same consciousness? Do they still have separate consciousnesses?
I feel like they
However you say
might.
that.
They probably do because the way I see it is like if their head is intact, that's the toy. If their body is intact, it's still sentient, but it's just moving around. So, or maybe not, because in Toy Story 4, and I know we keep going through each movie randomly, but in Toy Story 4, the zebra that's cut in half,
Mhm.
his little bottom doesn't move, but his
No.
top does.
Well, but then you have all the rest of the mutant toys too that are like 2 or 3 toys put together, and yet they seem like one entity.
And it's weird because you look at the legs with the fishpole.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't have a head, but it's
Yeah.
alive. So what gives these toys life?
I mean, that's a question that nobody seems to really be able to answer.
I don't like this.
And then later in this clip, like a few seconds later, you see just the headless Janie doll and the pterodactyl head laying on the floor after Sid throws them.
That's true. And also, later on in the tea party, there's a
Yeah.
headless doll and she's just hanging out drinking tea with her without her
Well,
head.
they're all headless, aren't they?
I think so. I don't know. I don't know what gives the toys life.
And like if you put two of them together, then is
Then
it a
what
whole new
happens?
toy? Is it are they still separate toys?
Also, are you killing if you restore the two toys? Are you killing the third toy that was created?
Well, later you see that the other mutant toys have fixed Janie and the pterodactyl and they seem fine, but then
Also, was Janie's head just hanging out? Like, was it just like, I'm decapitated now, and it's just staying there?
it's too much to think about. It's disturbing. Wasn't there was an early draft of Toy Story 4. I've actually read it where um Buzz and Woody switched heads.
Oh, that's right. I don't know how that would work. And
It
also, seeing Buzz's head on the large floppy Woody body would be weird.
Yeah, it was I read it and it was very strange. It was like Woody thought he was a space ranger. It it was really disturbing.
I'm glad that didn't happen. I feel like that would have been horrendous. And that sounds like really badly thought of fanfic.
Mhm.
That sounds like something you'd find in the grody depths of AO3 with like zero kudos on
I'm
it.
pretty sure I've seen stuff like that. Um, there is a one of the Toy Story treats, like the little tiny little like 30-second shorts that were made for ABC. There
Hmm.
is one where either Buzz or Woody has a I can't remember which one had a dream that Sid switched to their heads.
Hmm.
And that was really creepy because you see Buzz's head on Woody's body.
That's so weird. I don't remember that one. I've only seen like a couple of them. I don't remember that one.
Well, at some point we'll do an episode about
Yes, we
those.
shall. We'll just marathon all of them and then just go through them. Yay!
Yay.
At the 1 minute 6 second mark, Buzz and Woody peek out of Sid's bag and see the headless doll body and the disembodied pterodactyl head on the ground, a heavy metal poster with a skull on it, a doll melting inside a waffle iron, and a couple of doll and Combat Carl heads floating inside a lava lamp. Woody says, "We're gonna die. I'm out of here," and walks across the bed and a shelf to the door only to discover that it's locked. He starts looking for another way out and picks up a pencil to defend himself with. Something dark passes behind him while he's not looking, and he nervously says, Buzz, was that you?" He drops the pencil, picks up a flashlight, and starts shaking in fear. He hears a creaking noise, turns on the flashlight, and points it under the bed. The flashlight reveals a baby doll head with the hair shaved off.
So we see that poster that says Wraith Rock Monster. Do you know if that's a reference to something specific or is it just like
I want to say it's just something general because knowing my extensive knowledge of metal bands or rock bands,
that's why I was asking?
I can't think of anything. I guess if I look to see like maybe like the typeface of it or like the font to see if there's anything that matches with it, because like that's what I did when Onward came out and all of the patches on Barley's
His
jean
jacket?
vest. Yes, I actually looked and I went through all of the bands to see which ones that I could find, and a lot of them I did find. So stuff like that I try to do because I'm a metal nerd. So but I haven't done it for this, which is shame on me because I love Toy Story. So I don't know why I haven't done it.
I was just wondering about that because it seems like it could be.
I feel like it is
I probably
probably.
could have just looked it up, but I didn't do that.
Yeah, that's okay.
We already talked about why don't they just try to unlock the door?
Yeah,
Like,
we had a little existential crisis about that.
so where did the yo-yo come from? Like, there's a yo-yo that rolls out into the middle of the floor and then drops. Like, did Babyface kick it out there? But it doesn't. Um,
Maybe like while the other toys were moving around, they, kicked it and it just moved. I feel like
I guess, but I can't even tell where it would have come from.
that's not very sneaky
Maybe I
of
just.
them. Like if they were trying to sneak.
um, but it almost just looked like it wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah, like it was just like them pushing it out or something.
Well, but I couldn't even see, like, I guess it probably came out from under, like, the thing that his, trunk that says "toxic" on
Mhm.
it is sitting on. Because that's what I was trying to figure out, like, exactly where is it coming
Oh,
from?
yeah.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I mean, he's got so much stuff he's got junk, like literal junk in his room. And I feel like he probably doesn't know where anything is. He's probably one of these, like, another thing that makes me mad, just jumping to this. I hate how unmade his bed is. It's so messy. I get so mad with messy bed sheets because you're trying at night to like cover yourself and you can't because you can't find the correct corner to put to your face and the corner to put to your feet and you're just struggling.
Mhm.
I hate that. And I know this is later, but I hate the way he sleeps.
I can't that just, it doesn't seem comfortable.
It doesn't. And I'm like, is that an actual sleep? Like, do people actually sleep like that? Like, do people think that's comfortable? Like,
I don't know.
I wouldn't even want to try. That just doesn't seem comfortable. I like sleeping with my body flat.
Yeah. This is the first time we ever see Woody use his weapon of choice, apparently, a pencil.
Yes, a pencil. He always chooses the lamest item, and I think because he has no combat skills whatsoever, he
As we've
always,
seen in this movie.
as we've seen in this movie and every other movie, he has no combat skills whatsoever.
Because right here, he picks up a pencil to defend himself, and then in, Toy Story That Time Forgot,
He picks up
he
a
brings a
crayon.
crayon with him to the fighting ring. I'm like, "What do you think you're gonna do with
Are
that?"
you gonna mark him to death? Are you gonna write little mustaches on him, or what are you gonna do?
And, like, almost immediately, what's his name? Reptilus, the battle sword, like, chops it in half. And then in Toy Story 4, he grabs a pencil to try to defend himself against Gabby Gabby.
That's so funny. I feel like maybe because he is soft and squishy, he does not have anything like he's just a soft little guy. He's like, I'm not gonna defend myself. I'm soft and squishy. Everybody likes me.
I guess it just happens. I guess it just, in all those circumstances, it just happens that, "Oh, there's a pencil right there. I guess I can use this."
It's sharp and pointy. I might be able to stab somebody with it.
I guess.
That's so funny. I always think to myself, like Jigglypuff, like whenever Jigglypuff would get mad when she'd sing people to sleep and she'd get let's whatever, like marker and draw on their face. I'm like, is that what he's gonna do?
I don't know Pokemon,
Oh
so I don't
gosh,
know that
okay.
reference.
Well, whoever's listening that gets that reference, thank you.
I wanna talk about both the sound design and the
Mhm.
music in this scene. Because what all the little sounds, like all the little detailed sounds, like the sound of Woody's fingers tapping against each other when he's tapping his fingers,
Yeah.
and like the sound of the floor creaking as he's walking, and like the weird, almost animal sounding noises
Yeah. They have a bunch of different
that like
sounds
scare
going on.
him. And then so the music is and the lack of music in this scene too is great, because
Mhm.
there's from the time that Woody says we're gonna die until like the flashlight reveals Babyface, there's no music at all for like 30 seconds or so. It's
Mhm.
all just the sound effects, and they do that to make it feel more creepy and unsettling.
Yeah, because usually you have music in scenes and stuff or like little, sounds here and there, but this is just like almost dead silent with very few sound effects. And it
Yeah.
does make it unsettling because we're so used to hearing so much that when it's quiet, we're like, oh, what's going on?
And then the music starts to come back for just like a second. When you see Babyface uh just in the flashlight, there's like some creepy lullaby music for a second, and then
Hmm.
when Woody starts to think that, oh, he's maybe friendly, the music starts to feel just like it's like this really quiet, but it feels like normal Toy Story music we've been hearing throughout this whole movie for like a second or two.
Hmm.
And then but it's still pretty quiet, there's, like, not much of it, and then, like, in the next clip, a few seconds later, when Babyface turns around and you see that he's missing an eye, like, the
Yeah.
music suddenly is, like, it's there's this, like, loud, creepy, like, intense note, and it's like it's been building up this whole time from no music and just sound effects to just like, "Oh, here's a little bit," and then, it just makes it all that more
Yeah.
intense
Like
when the
the shock
music
factor of
fully
it.
comes back, yeah.
Hmm. And that was pretty cool on their part because they made it feel almost like a little bit like a horror movie because that's what they do in horror movies.
Mhm.
And
Especially with the, like, creepy lullaby music.
yes, that is like one of my favorite things. Like anything to me, like I'm a messed up kid. Anything that sounds like creepy child's music or like creepy circus music, I thrive off of it. I'm like anything that sounds like a music box that's slightly disturbing, I will purchase it, especially if it's I don't know if you've ever seen those little clowns that have the wind up in the back and they play. It's like a little plush clown, and they have a music box in them. So when you wind it up, it actually plays It's a Small World. But they're so cute and they kind of like move their head back and forth. I'm like, I would buy that in a heartbeat if it wasn't $80, which is stupid. I don't see why that little clown would be $80.
Not me, no thank
I know you're like, I'm never going to
you.
your house, Bianca. You're going to have clowns. Oh my gosh. So, since we're on the subject, let me talk about the last little bit of the clip. At the 1 minute 52-second mark, Woody calms down a little and says, "Hey, hi there, little fella. Come out here. Do you know a way out of here?" Babyface walks out on his metal spider legs, and the clip ends there.
So, like, the big scary moment, I mean, this clip cuts off in a terrible place,
It
but the
does.
the big scary moment is supposed to be when, Babyface turns around here in a second, but I'm like, there's a baby doll head walking out on metal spider legs. How
Yeah,
is that not a big scary reveal?
that is a scary reveal. Like when I was 5, I was like, I do not like that. When I was little, I never liked baby dolls. I hated them with a passion. They scared me. My cousin had a baby doll that she decided to become a beautician and paint its nails and put eyeliner and lipstick all over the baby. So it looked horrifying. Hated that baby. Her name was Selena. I was like, really? Selena needs to go get taken care. She needs to go into foster care. You're a bad mom.
Oh my gosh.
But oh my god. So Sandy, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I hated Selena.
See, I know we were just talking about how much I don't like creepy things, but even as a kid, I, for some reason, really liked Babyface.
Oh, how funny.
I don't know. It might have been because I liked baby dolls. I was like, oh, it's a baby doll head.
Oh my gosh. Now I'm okay with Babyface. I'm okay with the creepy factor of it. And I've actually seen horrible things. Like it's a baby doll head turned into a planter. So you put the plant in the baby's head, and I kind of want one.
Oh my gosh. I really want a baby face action figure, and I know they've made some in the past, but,
Mhm.
like, they're, like, 40, $50 on eBay, and I don't wanna pay that much, and I'm like, but for the last couple of years, Mattel has been making these toys, like, these little $10 Toy Story figures that are, like, they're really nice figures, and they're, like, 6, 7 inches tall, and I'm like, "Mattel, please make a baby face." They've been making some of the, like, more obscure and, like, less merchandised characters, like, they made a Rocky, and they made
Oh, I
a
remember
Stinky
the Rocky
Pete.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Please, please make me a baby face. I will buy it immediately."
You're like, please, just for me, make me one.
I don't wanna pay $50 on eBay.
For real, I know. It's crazy. I've looked up stuff too, like to buy. And some of the like even common things are expensive on eBay. I'm like, these people are just jacking up the price because they think, oh, it's eBay. People are going to buy more for more money. And I'm like, no. If I could find it somewhere else, if I can find it on Poshmark, I'll buy it there.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have to say about these 2 minutes. Do you have anything else?
I don't really. It's not until we start, getting into the following clips that I have a few things to say. So I'm good.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the mutant toys next time.
Yes, that's exciting.
Oh boy.
Very excited for that.
Yes. Before we finish, I want to bring up one thing. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, uh, if you wouldn't mind going over to Apple Podcasts and giving us a star rating, could be 1 star, 2 stars, whatever. But 5 stars would be best. That would really help us out. I know we mention it at the end of every episode, but I just thought I would bring it up. Um, because if you search Toy Story right now, we're pretty far down in the results, and from what I understand, more ratings help bring us up in the results, and that would help more people find us. And you don't even have to like actually write a review. All you have to do is leave a star. And also Spotify, I believe, just introduced star ratings as well. So if you're listening on Spotify, you can do the same thing, and we'd really appreciate it.
We will send our love to you.
It'll help us out.
Well, then I guess that wraps everything up. Let me go ahead and just sign us out. Thanks for listening, everyone. Be sure to follow our Facebook and Twitter accounts and send us an email if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.